Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I have the good fortune to say a few words introducing the great personality who's sitting just beside me. I think it is not possible for me to use the language which I own to ever describe His Eminence. But people know him through video cassettes and they have heard him quite a bit on subjects of Islam. It is also my good fortune to be amongst you people who are quite religious and who have a fervor to have adopted this method of celebrating the New Year, the Eve. I have also a mission to perform here is to evoke certain types of problems which he should try and help us to solve. There are certain misgivings, many misconceptions which we would like to have it clear from him. So we have some issues in mind which we have been talking about, where the confusions are creating more and more difficulties, especially amongst our women. The topic that you have to today discuss with us would be women in Islam or its position in Islam. I have some points which have been given to me by various people which I would like to enumerate a little so that you could touch upon them in your talk to us today. It has been apprehension of most of us that mainly the ulamas and the preachers or the zakirs who speak on the subject of women do not have much to say about women, but they have generally a very masculine approach to Islamic philosophy. It is also a problem here that the women seem to feel that they cannot have the same interaction as the men have because there is nothing like a parallel to a Jummah prayer. They also feel that if the basic desire of a woman is to decorate themselves ornamentally for their husbands, the husbands are hardly available for them to do such. They also feel that they have been less exposed to the Sharia of Islam and not as much as the male are exposed. They are also not given enough motivation to take religious pursuits as men are done. The question of hijab seems to be a burning problem. We have seen that though many of us have understood the aspects of hijab in Islam, we are doing it more as a compulsion rather than the basic need for a hijab in our community, or for a woman for that matter. She feels that her freedom is denied to her because of an hijab. A little talk on this would be very interesting and enlightening. The women also feel that many a times to keep the family circle well knit, they have to sometimes accept certain husbands' pressures on them for going out in societies where it is not totally Islamic and which is not only not Islamic but sometimes a little rowdy parties also. Then we have got some other important issues like motherhood. It seems that the mothers have taken this as an obvious thing to happen. A woman gets to become a mother, and this very obviousness of becoming a mother sometimes results in its obscurity or the profundity of how she should bring up a child. They also feel that if they are taken as a force in the society, they may be able to create a better impact than what it is being done today. They are also not seen as basic psych human beings like all of us, but they are mostly and predominantly looked upon as people or human beings who only have material and financial needs. They are not brought up to aspire, and a spirit of commitment is not inculcated in them. These are some of the issues which the women have also raised with us. I have something of my own which I would like to get enlightenment from you, sir. There is quite a mockery of arranged marriages in our community, and it seems to be a poor substitute for dating. It's our feeling that probably considering arranged marriage to be lack of choice is not exactly the phenomenon of Islam. But an arranged marriage gives us the possibility of the experience of our elders also. It seems that it is a suffocating and a very imprisoning system. The other problem which our community faces as far as women is concerned is about various people, various women being scattered all over the place in Bombay at least. And the difficulty arises between assimilation and confrontation. When she assimilates, she feels she betrays her basic parental teaching. When she confronts, she feels like a fanatic and leaves her exhausted and embittered. She thinks the product of the two states of thoughts and feels that the two worlds incapable of meeting in common grounds. These are some of the observations made, and I would like you, sir, to touch upon these besides the other profound things which you will surely tell us. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Alhamdulillah wa kafa wassalatu wassalamu ala abdihi al-Mustafa wa ala ahli baytihi al-tayyibin al-tahirin al-ma'sumin الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه تبارك وتعالى في الكتاب المجيد والفرقان الحميد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإذا بشر أحدهم بالأنثى ظل وجهه مسودا وهو كظيم يتوارى من القوم من سوء ما بشر به أيمسكه على هون أم يدسه في التراب ألا ساء ما يحكمون. Maulana al-Muhtaram and my brothers, and perhaps I expect that some of my sisters are listening to me. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The learned friend of mine has ably introduced the subject already, but I have to say that all that what he said are the problems which we have ourselves created. It cannot be in any way assigned to Islam, nor can it be ascribed to Islam. And it is for that reason that when I start with my subject, I hope that in the wake of discussions, inshallah ta'ala, I should be able to tackle some of the subjects that have been brought forth by my learned friend and elder, Brother Akbar Bhai Muljiani. The verse of Quran that I have just recited comes from Surah An-Nahl. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to the prevailing custom among the Arabs before the advent of Islam. وَإِذَا بُشِّرَ أَحَدُهُمْ بِالْأُنْثَى. Whenever any one of them is given news that a girl has been born at home, a daughter has been born, ظَلَّ وَجْهُهُ مُسْوَدًّا وَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ. His face turns black with anger. Quran is describing the prevailing custom. Perhaps some of it is still pertinent. That even today, many of us, if told that your wife has just delivered a girl, they turn red if they don't turn black. Quran says, ظَلَّ وَجْهُهُ مُسْوَدًّا وَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ. many cases of frustration, many cases of even suicide or attempts at suicide have been recorded by those wives who have failed to deliver sons. You see, now, this is not new. وَظَلَّ وَجْهُهُ مُسْوَدًّا وَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ. His face turns black with anger. He tries to swallow it. يَتَوَارَى مِنَ الْقَوْمِ مِنْ سُوءِ مَا بُشِّرَ بِهِ. After having been told that a daughter is born, he tries to hide himself and also hide the news from the people, because it feels shameful to tell the people that a girl has been born at home. يَتَوَارَى مِنَ الْقَوْمِ مِنْ سُوءِ مَا بُشِّرَ بِهِ. And then he thinks, أَيُمْسِكُهُ عَلَى هُونٍ أَمْ يَدُسُّهُ فِي التُّرَابِ. Should he allow the girl to remain despite all humiliation, or should it be buried alive? Allah sa'a ma yahkumun. Allah says, know you all that they do make a very bad judgment. That means the judgment normally was that they buried the girls alive. And this was not only in Arabia. It makes an interesting study to read about women before the advent of Islam. What was happening then? I read Socrates years ago, and he is reported to have said, women please you twice, once when you marry them, again when you bury them. That means they have already selected this particular part of humanity either for their own enjoyment, for their own rejoicing in life, for their own comfort in life, and that is all over. And then it becomes so cumbersome that it's better buried. And this is where we find that major thinkers of various schools of thought have spoken so much ill of women that in some cases even religious scriptures apart from the Islamic ones have said that women would not be allowed to enter heaven. They simply don't qualify. Having looked into all that which was happening then, even among the thinkers of society, those who really had some profound way of thinking, some intellectual analysis that they did, yet we find that the result was that we come across all sorts of deprivation for women. When the Prophet ﷺ came, there was a change which was not very easily accepted. The society was not used to giving in to those changes. And we see for the first time that the Prophet himself, we may construe it as a miracle or as an excellence. That is something else. But the fact remains that when the Prophet stood to respect his own daughter, Fatima Zahra, salamullah alayha, it was not merely that it was an excellence of Janabi Fatima Zahra. There was a meaning being conveyed to the people that here is my daughter. I have no son. I am proud of her. And when she appears, I stand to give room to my daughter to sit next to me. And the people questioned him, said, "O Prophet, we haven't seen any father do this." The coming of the Prophet, the coming of the daughter toward the father and the respect being demonstrated clearly showed that there was something else, a message which was being conveyed. And Quran is so explicit about it. And if we read the book of Allama Majlisi alayhi rahmah, for example, where he writes about Hilyatul Muttaqeen, the ornaments of the God-fearing people, and where he gives us all the etiquettes that we have to follow in Islam, one of the things which he writes is that the Prophet said, whenever you enter your home every day as a father, enter with some small gifts, even if it be a fruit or two. But don't come empty-handed. Enter with something in hand to offer to your own family. But then he said, if you give to your daughter first, before you give to your son, you earn more thawab. That sort of emphasis with very small and seemingly, ostensibly insignificant teachings have got basic message for a society which placed a woman nowhere. One thing. Second thing is this, that in those days, the wives of the father, that means apart from the mother who gave birth to me, other wives of the father were inherited by the son. And it was the Prophet who said that a woman who has married your father is your mother, regardless of whether she has given you birth or she has not given you birth. She will be respected as a mother. She cannot be inherited because she is not a commodity. Two things. He gave for the first time, perhaps unprecedented in history at that time, he gave a share in inheritance to women. And it is sometimes very surprising when I hear, even in these days, that yes, he gave, but he gave half of what he gave to men. As Quran says, وَلِلذَّكَرِ مِثْلُ حَظِّ الْأُنْثَيَيْنِ, for a man, the share is equal to two women. And they forget one thing, that in Islam, the burden of earning the bread, eking livelihood, lay squarely on manfolk and not on women. And man has to earn, man has to maintain the family. If I have a wife who is a millionaire, say by her inheritance, because in Islam a woman has the right to own her own property. Say I have married and my wife inherits, and suddenly she becomes a property holder. She's a millionaire. Yet, maintenance of the family at home is my responsibility. I cannot tell her that now that you have inherited and you have had a windfall of cash, therefore you will look after me. I will have to look after her, to the extent that the kafan, the shroud that is wajib upon husband, remains wajib and compulsory even if the wife is a multi-millionaire lady. I, as a husband, have to provide that kafan if my wife dies while I'm still alive. Now, all these things considered, the share of inheritance given to a woman comes from so many sources. It comes as a wife, it comes as a daughter, and it comes also as a mother. Mother inherits, and she falls in the first bracket. Daughter inherits, she falls in the first bracket. Of course, sister falls in the second bracket, but she inherits. And wife does not fall in the bracket of inheritance. She does not receive by way of inheritance. She receives bil fard. Bil fard is that you will first give to her whatever her share is, and then the estate will devolve upon the inheritors. Maulana is sitting here. He will be able to tell you more, because there are those who inherit bil fard and those who inherit bil irth and those who inherit bil qaraba. The wife is bil fard. That means we cannot distribute our estate. It cannot devolve upon other heirs unless wife's share has been paid. If there is some issue, she will get 12.5%. If there are no issues of the husband, she will get 25%. You give it her, and then you distribute among the heirs. So if a woman is fortunate enough to have crossed all these stages in life, to have been a wife, to have been a daughter, to have been mother, she inherits at various instances. And therefore, to say that women's share is smaller is sometimes a proof of very shallow thinking. Now, having done this, I have to say a few words. We as Muslims, and sometimes may I speak on behalf of all of us, Easterners. I use that word particularly. Easterners means people of the East, who have been labeled as people of the third world. There is no third world. But we have been labeled as third world people, and we cannot just get out of it. You see, but there is nothing like third world. It is the arrogance of the developed countries that they have called themselves first world. We are the third world. In any case, we are nowadays given a bit higher status. Formerly we were called underdeveloped countries. Now we are not called underdeveloped countries. Now we are called developing countries. We have been given a better name. We, the Easterners, have been really suffering from a lot of inferiority complex. So much so that whatever came from the West was excellent. Whatever came from a white man was excellent. And we must emulate, we must copy them, we must monkey them, we must ape them. That has been our attitude. And whenever there has come an objection from that side, we always try to be apologetic, to say, no, but. Today, in this brief speech which I am delivering here, and I hope that this will be a forerunner of many speeches in the days to come, if I ever happen to come to Bombay and have good time, inshallah ta'ala, to be able to offer some more, because I have a lot of things in my mind and I am not apologetic about it. I speak with assertion that this is what we believe and this is what we would like to practice, and we feel that Islam has given a better package, perhaps the best. And I'll give you some of the aspects of it so that you, all of you who either have been to England or have not been to England, may realize what the picture is like. We are being told, I'm basing my treatment of the subject on what my learned friend has told me. He has actually reflected what is happening. So I'm trying to tell you that what is happening is not in Islam. For example, who on earth ever said that a woman should not be educated? Who said? In Biharul Anwar, written by Allama Majlis alayhi rahmah, there is a syllabus which was fixed by Imam Jaffer Sadiq salawatullah wasallam for teaching women. What should be taught? فَعَلِّمُوهُنَّ الدِّينَ وَالْخِيَاطَةِ وَالْحِسَابِ. I cannot say more. Imam alayhi salam says, teach them. That means فَعَلِّمُوهُنَّ means teach the girls. Teach them first their faith, the religion, and then teach them how to stitch and sew, and teach them how to count and mathematics. علموهن الحساب وعلموهن الكتابة, and teach them how to write, والقراءة, and how to read. Well, if my father did not teach my sister, you know why they didn't teach? Do you know, sir? They used to say, "Ene banao jo nahi to pachi love letters lakse." Yes, this is a fact. Don't teach those girls anything. They will start writing or reading or receiving those love letters or whatever. Don't teach them. Keep them unlettered. What they have got to do is to cook. To cook, to serve the husband at home, and to have children, to rear them, to bring them up, and over. Why should they read and write? Islam did not say that. I give an example. How often have ulama told us on the mimbar that Janab Zainab Salamullah alayha delivered a khutbah where one in Kufa, another in Damascus, in the presence of Yazid, for example, or in Kufa in the presence of Ibn Ziyad. If we read those lines, which have been reported in history unanimously by all the historians, does it give us any hint or not? Does it not tell that the woman was really educated? That sort of words could not have come out of an illiterate person. One thing. Second thing, there is a book called Tarazul Mudhahab fi Ahwali Zainab, in which it is clearly mentioned repeatedly by references that Once in those early days means the days of Imam Ali's Caliphate in Kufa, once Imam Hussein alayhi salam entered the house and found the house full of ladies of Kufa. So as he wanted to walk out, he heard his sister Janab Zainab conducting a class in which at that particular moment she was explaining the ladies of Kufa what is the meaning of Sami Allahu liman hamida. She was explaining the meaning of that lam which came after Sami Allahu. God has indeed heard lam man hamida, those who have eulogized him, praised him. That lam has a significant meaning in Arabic language. Well, Ya ammati anti bihamdillah alimatun ghayru muallama. This is what Imam Zainul Abidin Islam said. Oh my aunt, to Imam Zainab, you, by the grace of Allah, are a learned person who has not been taught. That means you have not had a worldly teacher, you have had a spiritual teaching in the home that you were brought up. If I read as Anta alimatun ghayru muallima, that means you have not been a teacher, but you have not been taught as a muallama. Fine. Earlier, there is a khutbah by Janab Zainab, Janab Fatima Zahra salamullah alayha, in the mosque of the Prophet. And Maulana is sitting here, and I would like to say that even Arabic scholars are finding it difficult to translate the words and the phrases used by Janab Fatima Zahra salamullah alayha. Is it not so, Maulana? It becomes difficult. You cannot, because it has got that depth and that profundity, where Fatima Zahra salamullah alayha discusses the meaning of absolute unity of God. What is the meaning of Tawheed? What are the values of Nubuwwah? What is the meaning of Wahi? And what is the meaning of Imam? One phrase requires sometimes 2 or 3 paragraphs to explain what Fatima salamullah alayha has said soon after the death of the Prophet. This gives me a hint that a woman can be really substantially educated. Now, if you ask me, is education English? Well, I have come to India this time for the 4th or 5th time, maybe. I'm convinced that in India, although I have been requested to speak in English, but in India, education is not based on English. People are highly educated, not necessarily in English. It could be Tamil, it could be Telugu, it could be Hindi, it could be Gujarati, it could be Urdu. Any medium educates. It's not English which educates. It's a language, and any language is a gift of God. The question is that the education does not mean knowing of a language. Education has got to give us that profundity and depth and that breadth of vision and horizon, which these ladies had. Why should our lady not have that? What has happened is that, now listen to this very carefully. We raised a girl in a household without giving her education. Then upon her we donned a parda of Islam. I'm sorry to say this. Upon her head we donned the chadar. That means it's just like packing something very well, but inside the quality is inferior. If there had been an educated, Islamically and worldly, woman who knows her responsibilities well, and then if she were given a hijab, that would have given a different woman altogether. So ours, forgive me to say, has always been a lopsided development. And because of our own lopsided development,